There is my current blood sugar, 139 and stable. Not doing too bad as far as blood sugars are concerned, but I've had two really high peaks at breakfast and dinner again, and I'm skyrocketing high. So I think for those two meals, I think I'm going to up my insulin to carb ratio to a 1/8 from a 1/10, just until my body gets out of this really weird insulin resistant time. It happens. This is what I mean by being flexible with your management, is learning how to understand the trends you're seeing over a couple days and then make an adjustment. And then when you start drifting a little lower, or I notice that I'm coming down too quickly from breakfast, probably indicates I need to go back to my original 1/10. So anyways, I also wanted to say my apologies for the way YouTube has been behaving. Those of you that, I do a pretty good job of keeping the Beyond Type 1 community updated, but I need to start working on keeping up my Instagram and Facebook community up to date. You can see the past couple of weeks my videos have gone up on like Friday, Saturday, Monday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And that's because for whatever reason YouTube keeps rejecting my uploads, even though I can upload them the night before, 2 nights before. I could put them as a private video at first or as a public video. I can have everything all ready to go, all nicely laid out, and it just rejects my uploads. I've tried logging out of YouTube, restarting my stuff. Sometimes I think YouTube just behaves in a funny way, but I also wanted to say thank you for your patience and consideration. Hopefully this week will go up much better. As most of you know, I do pre-film my videos in advance so that I can take the time to edit them properly and make them well thought out for you, because I don't want to be scrambling for videos at the last minute for you guys, because it's not appropriate as far as content is concerned. So with that being said, let's jump right into today's video. Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. And as you can tell by the title of today's video, I'm going to be unveiling, or not really unveiling, a lot of you do know, but I'm going to be discussing the main points of what the Dexcom G6 is different in terms of being a continuous glucose monitor from other generations of Dexcom. Plus, I'm going to give you how I use the arrows to dose for treatment decisions, plus 15 other tips I have found helpful in using the Dexcom G6. Actually, almost a year. It'll be a year in November, so we're closing in on that quite quickly here. So when this video goes up, I'd be using the Dexcom for 8 months, which is kind of crazy to me to think, but these are the tips I've kind of learned over the 8 months from either my own experience or you guys. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to delve into the features of the G6 first. So the first things that I think of is the Dexcom G6 is a no calibrations and no finger sticks required continuous glucose monitor. Basically, that means when you put this on, you enter a code, and that factory calibrates the Dexcom so that when it is done warming up, it will automatically start delivering you blood sugar readings and blood sugar trends. The Dexcom G6 also has an auto applicator. An auto applicator just basically means that when you put it on your body, all you have to do is break the safety tab off, and at the push of a button, the inserter goes in and retracts out, leaving the sensor underneath your skin. For the Dexcom G6, there's also a 10-day wear time with a sleeker transmitter and a sleeker profile for the actual sensor. And the transmitters last 3 to 3.5 months. And the transmitter batteries, I believe, are a little bit cheaper made. And I noticed mine lasts 3 to 3.5 months, depending upon how it's acting or how the transmitter was built or whatever the case may be. I usually get about 3.5 months out of mine. For example, the last one I had, I put in one on March 16th, and it died at the end of June, so that's just over 3 months, about 3.5 months. So I expect to get another 3.5 months out of my now this next transmitter. So now I'm going to delve into how I actually use the arrows to dose. So if there's a straight arrow across, or it says my blood sugar is steady, I just use that number. If it's a slight arrow up or slight arrow down, I also use that number. When there's one arrow headed up, I add 30 to the number that will be going on there. So for example, it says my blood sugar is 140 with a straight arrow headed up, and I want to be bold with insulin. I will dose myself for a blood sugar of 170. Same with the straight arrow down, you subtract 30. If there are double arrows headed up, you have to add or subtract 60. So double arrows headed up means add 60. So if it says my blood sugar is 140 with the double arrows headed up, that means that my blood sugar is expected to be at 200 within a short period of time. Same with double arrows headed down. If you're 140 with double arrows headed down, probably means your blood sugar is going to be at 80 in a very short period of time, and that your blood sugar is falling or rising super rapidly. Now, I do notice with the slight arrows up or down, I can trust the number. However, I usually know that when I have a slight arrow up or down, that means that I'm probably going to be adding another 5 to 10 points, thinking about that in the top of my head when it comes to dosing myself. So if I'm 165 with the slight arrow headed up, I usually will dose for a blood sugar of 170 just because I know it's probably going to increase just a little bit more before that blood sugar flatlines. So I'm more likely to take a whole unit correction at that level than if I was 165 and stable, if that makes sense. Because if I'm 165 and stable, then I really don't need that much to drop that sugar down. But if I'm rising a little bit more, I want to push a little more, expecting that it's going to go up to about 170 and level off, if that makes sense to you guys. So now that I got into the dosing, now I'm going to give you 15 tips and tricks that I have learned over using the Dexcom G6 for 8 months. So my first tip is to adjust your clarity settings and alarms and alerts to what you want. Now, I recently just went back and changed my clarity settings to 70 to 180 so that my doctor can better understand from her perspective the ADA guidelines how I'm actually following. And I'm actually 94% of the time in range between 70 and 180. When it comes to between 70 and 140, I'm about 76% of the time in that range, so take it or leave it for what it's worth. But don't be afraid to adjust the clarity settings for what you need and what you want. Like I said, on my actual CGM, I have it set for 70 to 140. You may want 70 to 180, you may want 70 to 200, you may want 70 to 120, you may want to go tighter, you may want to go less tight. Doesn't make a difference, but set it to where you want it so that you can make better choices and treatment decisions for your style of management. Now, I wholeheartedly believe that the lower you lower your high bar on your CGM, the quicker you're going to be able to respond to blood sugars and fix them before they turn dangerously high. And there is a correlation between a lower A1C and the lower bar of high blood sugar bar set on a CGM, because you're going to take action quicker for a blood sugar that's just slightly elevated as opposed to a blood sugar that's actually highly elevated, if that makes sense. Number 2 is you can actually add events to see what goes on for your graphs. So I'm going to open up and show you this right now. I don't do this anymore, but I did this a lot when I was on shots. So if you go to add event, you can do a fast-acting insulin, long-acting insulin, carbs, exercise, or health. Health includes anything like alcohol, periods, illness, stress, those kind of things can kind of play a role in how you're feeling with your blood sugars and how your blood sugars may be doing. So I really liked using that when I was on shots because I could see exactly when I gave myself an injection and see what followed giving that injection or what followed putting in so many carbs and putting in so many units of insulin, so I could clearly see what was going on. Now that I use gluco, I don't do this as much, but I would like to get back into doing this just because I feel like then you could see in the moment for that day how you did, and kind of if you're going to have that meal again or eat a similar meal, that hey, this didn't work, let's try something different. Number 3 is actually on the Apple Watch. You can change the color of the Apple Watch so that it lights up red when you're low and that yellowy color when you're high. Now the way you do this is in the Apple Watch app. When you get into the Apple Watch app, I have the extra large complication. So when you choose that, this is what this looks like. You're going to search for extra large. But then in the color, if you go all the way down, if you go to right here and click this, that says multicolor, and it'll stay kind of a whitish color when your blood sugar is between the range you want it, and when you're high, it'll light up yellow, and when you are low, it will light up red. So I actually kind of like that, so you get that kind of that same feel for when you actually open up the app and see if you're yellow, gray, or white, or red. I just want to let you guys know that is an option for you if you want to get that kind of that same feature as you get on the apps using the Apple Watch. Number 4 is to run your CGM readings through Spike and or Sugarmate. Now, I forgot to re-sign my Spike app, so I had to delete it, and I'll probably go back when I'm ready to either reset a transmitter or go back and use Spike instead to manage my blood sugar readings. I will reinstall it then, but Sugarmate is one that's free and that you can easily access through the App Store. And all it does is it shows your blood sugars. It gives you a mini graph. It gives you your percent in range. It gives you your average and everything else. I hope to delve in more into Sugarmate in a later video, but this is a glimpse of what it looks like. As you can tell, my 139 over the course of this video started turning into a 183. So I've taken a correction. It'll start coming down shortly. But I really like to see that mini graph too. I think that's super neat. And this is my percent in range for being between 70 and 140. It gives you quartiles. It gives you your GMI. Gives you your estimated A1C, standard deviation, your median blood sugars. And you can also log your carbs. You can log your insulin, stuff like that. But I love that what's different about it is it can show you what happened from the last time. So you can see I'm 183 and stable. But I added 2 points from my last reading 5 minutes ago. And you can use the same widget in your phone right here. And you can see everything clearly. So this is the Sugarmate app. This is the Dexcom widget. Number 5 is to change the alert tones so that you can hear your alerts and respond to them more quickly. Now, some of you like me have probably become accustomed to the typical Dexcom low or high. So I have changed mine. I have mine vibrate only for high just because my high alert is set for a lower level. That if I miss it, it's probably not as big of an issue for me. But the low alert, I was getting to the point at night, like if I heard the low alert, it would wake me up, but then I would like go back to sleep, and that's not good. We do not want that. So I went into settings and I went into alert. I went into settings and then I went into alerts. And then I changed my alert tone to have it say, uh-oh. It's an uh-oh sound, and it just sounds like a, what do you think it is? Like, like it's not good. Fix that problem before it turns into a bigger one. I actually read this from somebody who decided to make his urgent low alarm a baby crying or a low blood sugar alarm of a baby cry because that immediately gets his attention. And I thought that was so funny that if you're out in public and you hear this baby screaming, that it could be your actual cell phone telling you that your blood sugar's low. So that's kind of an interesting feat, but change them up from time to time so that you're not less responsive to them. Number 6 is you can actually customize alerts for different times and different situations. Like for me, if I'm going to school or if you're in work or you want a weekend one or a nighttime one where you don't want to get alerted unless your blood sugar goes above this or below this, you can set it for that. For example, if during the night you don't want to know if your blood sugar is higher than 180, you can set that, but during the day you want to know if it's above 140. You can be proactive and take different methods of management at different times of the day using that feature on the Dexcom app. Number 7 is to use Share to allow someone else to see your blood sugar values in real time. I have one parent that follows my blood sugar readings, and it's my dad, but the only alert he has is for an urgent low alarm because I feel like that is probably the most critical one that any parent or spouse or whomever significant other should have, because that is when blood sugars are getting dangerous to the point where if you don't treat them, you could die, you could pass out, you could start going and having seizures, you could go into a coma. That gets super duper dangerous that way. So use the Share feature as much as possible, or use the Share feature to your advantage. Number 8, which I've learned from a lot of other people, but I've also noticed this with myself, is make sure you wait 10 to 15 minutes in between changing your sensors so that the Dexcom app doesn't think you're trying to restart sensors. The reason why it does that is because it gives the Dexcom app a time to rest to say, yes, this sensor is stopped. If you wait 10 to 15 minutes and then, go through and put the new code in, start the warm-up, put the transmitter in, attach the sensor, yada, yada, yada. If you do that and wait 10 to 15 minutes, then the app gets a chance to breathe and recognize that, yes, this is a new session. This person is not restarting the sensor. There is no cheats here or whatever the case may be, because I haven't had this personally happen to me, but I've seen it enough with a lot of you that I've had to call Dexcom to have them replace the sensor, when in reality all it was is because the app thought that you were restarting a sensor, because immediately after a sensor stopped, you put one on, slapped one on, started the warm-up within like a minute. And that's not giving the app enough time to breathe and recognize and transition clearly between one session to the next. So that is a tip I have for you, and this is something I go by so that I don't have to call Dexcom for them to replace a sensor that really wasn't faulty, but instead learning how to maneuver with the Dexcom app. Number 9 is to pair your Dexcom data with Apple Health, Gluco, Tide Pool to also detect trends beyond the Clarity app. I use Gluco and Apple Health, and I will be eventually transitioning to Tide Pool. One of you just posted on Beyond Type 1 today, there is a link on how you can set up a Tide Pool account, and now you can sync all your Omnipod Dash PDM readings into Tide Pool so that you can see more trends and get more information on all that different stuff that's going to be really important, especially when Omnipod does transition to artificial pancreas or FDA approved loop system, that everything is transitioned to Tide Pool. So I'm super duper excited to use that. But consider using Apple Health, consider using Gluco if you are an Omnipod user, or Gluco in general. Consider using Tide Pool because these are great ways to get more information and gain more information about why you're trending for certain reasons. Number 10 is wait a couple minutes before when you're changing the sensors before snapping in the transmitter. This is something I picked up only because it seems like regularly, if I put a sensor in, I must be really good at hitting my own capillaries because I'll just gush blood everywhere. Especially when I do it on my abdomen. Like, I swear, like, all the time, all the times that I've decided to put a Dexcom G6 on my abdomen, I put it on and blood gushes up. So I usually know now if I put it on any area of my body, I'll put the sensor on, and I'll wait about 5 minutes to see if any big gushes of blood come out, because then if they do, then I just take a little tissue and wipe out that blood before I snap the transmitter in, because to me, like, why would I cake that transmitter in dried blood if I can avoid it? And that just makes for more of a cleanup for your next session, because obviously you'd have to clean the transmitter and all that stuff before you stick it into a new sensor. So it just makes it less gross and makes it more clean, and you get the point here. Number 11 is use Siri to say, what is your blood sugar? I love using this feature, especially if I'm about to drive, or if I'm not available to look at my phone, or I just want to know something really quickly. I can command Siri, hey, what is my blood sugar? And she will tell me you're 183 and stable, or whatever. Number 12, which I've heard from a lot of you guys, is if you are missing a directional arrow on your Dexcom, let's just say it says your blood sugar is 180 with just a circle and there's no arrow pinpointing to where it's headed, you may be dehydrated. One of you guys mentioned this to me, that anytime that your Dexcom doesn't seem to be wanting to pick up readings, try slugging a bunch of water or a liquid, and it should hopefully get it back and running quickly. And I've noticed this myself, especially when summer comes. Now that I'm more active, and I definitely notice I feel like I get dehydrated quicker because of the heat. I have had it where I've had new sensors just a couple days old, and all of a sudden they'll just randomly stop giving me arrows, and then I drink some water and they start returning back to normal. It's almost like the sensor has a hard time picking up directional trends if you don't have enough fluid in your cells, that it can't quite get to where you're headed. So try this. I think it does work. I think it personally works for me, and I know it's worked for a lot of you guys, so that's another tip for you. Number 13 is if you're getting a lot of sensor failures, like I did that one day. I had 3 Dexcom failures in a row. I did do a video on this. If you're gonna get if you're getting a lot of failures, or just a lot of sensors that just won't work, try powering down your smartphone or doing a Dexcom reboot, which basically means that you uninstall the app, reinstall the app, repair your transmitter, put in a new sensor, and let it warm up. And it should fix a lot of your problems, because it's almost like the app gets overloaded from all the sessions it had to run, and it just sometimes takes time for it to kind of readapt itself and readjust itself. Just like anything else for you guys, if your smartphone is glitching or you're not able to get into apps or whatever the case may be, mine is starting to do that right now. And I don't remember the last time I powered down fully my smartphone and rebooted it, so that should actually make a difference in my smartphone usage the next time I use it. So it's very important that you do a reboot, or on your phone or on the Dexcom app if you're having a lot of issues with sensors, Thank goodness Dexcom gladly replaced the sensors that failed on me. But when I finally called them with the third sensor error, they replaced it, and she walked me through a Dexcom reboot. So consider using that if you're having a lot of problems. Number 14 is to call Dexcom for free clear overpatch tapes. They're nothing really that fancy or exquisite, but they're real basic overpatches that you slap on over the sensors, and then you peel them up, and there's a nice clear over tape that goes over the actual white adhesive patch of the actual sensor. Right now I have an Expression Med tape on. It just says type wonderful. I haven't worn Expression Med tape in a while, and I wanted to get back into wearing them. And I usually don't end up putting over patches on right away. I usually put them on by like the 4th or 5th day when they're starting to get kind of like peeling up. Otherwise, I just wear the adhesive. But I do notice the Dexcom adhesives do not stick as well as the Omnipod adhesives because they have to stay on longer, or maybe they're just reformulating a bunch of things. But if you want to get some free over patches and you don't want to pay ungodly prices, or you just want something that works good in a pinch, or if you only use patches every now and again, call Dexcom customer service and they should gladly send you a free pack of 10 clear over patches. If you're a customer, and if you're a paying customer and you love Dexcom, they'll gladly send those to you. Number 15, the final tip I have for you guys, is do not be afraid to rotate your sensor sites to avoid scar tissue and compression lows. Now, the Dexcom G6 is only FDA approved to be worn on the abdomen and the upper buttock for young children. And if you think about it, if you continuously put your sensor in your abdomen, you're going to be building up scar tissue to the point where that actual wire might not be able to properly read your blood sugar readings or your interstitial fluid readings because it's getting stuck in an area where there's so much scar tissue. So I find the back of the arms work really good. I also hope that somebody said to try the inner arm. I may try that. I'm going to definitely try. I've used the sides of my thighs, both upper and lower, but this next sensor I'm actually going to slap right in the smack in the middle of my thigh, kind of like I do here, where it's smack in the middle of my muscle. And I feel like I get the best Dexcom readings from a muscle or a more muscular region. So please don't be afraid to try new sites because you're going to avoid scar tissue buildup, and you may just find out that other sites that you may not even think of are super accurate. My back of my arm is super accurate. I really don't have a problem with any areas, but the arms are my favorites because they're out of the way for compression lows. Compression lows come from you sleeping on the actual sensor and pushing on it so hard that for whatever reason the wire cannot properly read the amount of sugar in the fluid, or it pushes all the fluid away from the sensor, so the sensor begins to plummet, thinking that your blood sugar is dropping really quick, and it actually isn't. I've had this happen to me overnight, and I've treated a blood sugar, a false low or a compression low, and ended up with a blood sugar in the 180s because of it. So be mindful that compression lows are real. Be mindful that rotating your sites is not a bad thing for sensors, just like you would rotate your sites for injections or pumps, because if you use the same spot over and over and over again, you're going to get scar tissue buildup. Like me, on the abdomen, the only really good places I have to put sensors is right in here, because this is where I have the most cushion, and because of the way my stomach sits, if I go way over here, there's not enough meat on my bones, and going way up here, I have too much rib cage. So that's why I say it's important that you rotate your sites, because if like me, you have a physique where it's harder to find areas to put things, you need to consider using more options that are more muscular, or areas of your body that would maybe give you better accuracy or better absorption. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Kind of a longer one, but I hope it gave you an insight as to the basics behind the Dexcom G6 if you are newly diagnosed or you're looking at upgrading from the G5, how I use the arrows to dose, and 15 tips that I've learned from you guys and I have learned through my experiences using the Dexcom G6. I would never trade in my Dexcom G6. I actually feel so comfortable with it that I only finger stick twice a day. I may finger stick more depending on how my blood sugars are behaving. That's a different video I'll make for a different day, but on most days I can finger stick twice a day. I finger stick for my fasting blood sugar, and I finger stick in the evening before I go to sleep. And every time I finger stick, this thing is super accurate. And the fact that it pretty accurately mirrored my A1C, it predicted my A1C at 5.8, and my A1C was 5.9. I feel safe and confident knowing that it is giving me accurate blood sugar readings in real time. So anyways, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. And until tomorrow for another video, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye everyone.